Hey everyone, you are listening to the Divergent Conversations podcast. We are two neurodivergent mental health professionals in a neurotypical world. I'm Patrick Casale.
And I'm Dr. Neff.
And during these episodes, we do talk about sensitive subjects, mental health, and there are some conversations that can certainly feel a bit overwhelming. So we do just want to use that disclosure and disclaimer before jumping in. And thanks for listening. Yeah, so it is like a couple of days before Thanksgiving. It's like super dreary and raining outside here in Asheville, and you're sick, and the holidays are coming up. So I think we wanted to talk, well, at least a lot of the major American holidays are coming up. So I think we want to talk about just neurodivergence and holidays and how to navigate them and how to protect yourself and safeguard your own energy and mental well-being.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, it's complex, isn't it?
It's hard, I think, regardless of whether you are neurodivergent or typical. I think the holidays are hard for a lot of people for a lot of reasons. And I think they can bring up a lot of emotion. I think they can bring up a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of dread. I think they bring up a lot of almost like for those of you who are high maskers having to perform or show up a certain way and act as if like you feel a certain way about being there. So yeah, I think they're
Yeah,
complex.
absolutely. And then the guilt of feeling a certain way about being there. Like if you don't enjoy it, but all of the shoulds, I should enjoy this. Yeah. Yeah. The combination of like the cultural pressure of like, this is the happiest time of year, like time to connect with family and XYZ. And then the internal experience, if that's not your experience. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's further complicated when you might, be neurodivergent and you might be struggling internally if you especially have not discussed outwardly or publicly with family, friends, colleagues, whoever you might spend holiday time with.
Mm.
And I also think there's complications that may arise if you are unmasking publicly at a holiday event, or if you've
Mhm.
recently talked about it publicly and then your family or friends or whoever want to
Mhm.
ask a million questions about your experiences. Feels like hell.
Mhm. Yeah, like to have private conversations, but not in a private setting.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry,
Mhm.
terrible. And
Yeah.
have to change that.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I want to talk about strategies. I want to validate those of you who are like,
Mhm.
I hate the holiday season in general. Like, I don't participate. I don't have people to spend time with. I don't look forward to them. Like, society throws this message in our faces of how we're supposed to perform and how we're supposed to feel. So I get that. And I'm definitely one of those people. I don't enjoy the holiday season. Never have, never
Mhm.
will. Don't look forward to it. Dread
Mhm.
it. Can't wait till it's over. How about you?
I actually like it.
Okay.
But I haven't always you were expecting that, I know. I haven't always liked it. But I think in the last few years, so I definitely didn't like it before. In the last few years, once we've understand our family and our family needs, like we've taken it pretty serious to have like a cozy, comfortable holiday season, like the four of us.
Yeah.
So there's a things kind of actually slowed down. No, that's definitely not always been the case. I think discovering we used to travel and that was horrific. That was so terrible. I do not recommend traveling while neurodivergent with neurodivergent children during holiday season. Um, so I don't enjoy to like this week in the US is Thanksgiving for folks who still celebrate that holiday that I think we should probably stop celebrating.
Yeah.
Um, that's another episode, but like that I've always disliked because it's like you go into a room, there's lots of people, it's kind of fancy, there's a lot of smells. There, like I've always really disliked that holiday. But again, this family, like the four of us, are gonna hang out, and partly complicating factors, which most people just aren't thinking about anymore, but like exposure, like to go to a large family gathering. COVID, when I get it and my daughter gets it, it knocks us out. Like, and so I'm still thinking about exposure, which a lot of folks I realize aren't. But so there's that.
It's a good point, because I know you've been battling long COVID. So for
Hmm.
those of us who, we did that episode on chronic health and just illness in general with Mel, and I think that's another factor. Yeah, I mean, this episode's not going to come out before Thanksgiving, but like, talk about sensory hell. Walking into like
Mm,
a massive, busy room with like all the smells, all the
hmm.
foods, all the textures, like all the people. It can be so overwhelming so quickly. And
Hmm.
I myself am also looking forward to just being at home with my wife. My dad's coming up today, and that is it. And we are not doing anything. And that feels pretty perfect to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, so I think when we can lean into the comfort of the season, it can be nice. Like for Christmas season, I love the smell of pine or fir or whatever that fresh tree smell is. I love the twinkly lights, not the bright lights. I love hot chocolate and like warm, fuzzy blankets. So I think when I can lean into the smallness of the holiday and release the pressures of making it big, I've actually been able to enjoy this season. But most people can't release those pressures of the big. Um, and I definitely didn't enjoy it before I could do that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I myself don't I celebrate Christmas, but like it's only because my wife does. I'm Jewish by like not by religion, but by ancestry. So I don't
Hmm.
really I would err on the side of like not giving a shit about any of it. It feels so commercialized like all around. So
Yeah.
for me, it's very much like my autistic side where I'm like, this feels wrong. This feels like black and white to me. I don't enjoy any of this. It feels like um what's the word I'm looking for? Not commercial again. That's what I already said. But it feels so capitalist, like at
Yeah.
the whole cycle of it. So like for me, I just want it to be over. I know my wife enjoys it. So I think that's another challenge when we've talked about cross neurotype partnerships and different needs in general as human beings, like trying to show up if you do have a partner or family who want to participate, who are looking
Hmm.
for things, and then trying to
Hmm.
figure out like, how do I get myself there? Or at least able to be there.
So this is kind of divergent, but are you running a Black Friday sale? Because you're a business owner.
I am not. I hate Black Friday sales too. Like I'm just like, I can't do it. What do I do? Like fit couple $100 off a retreat registration or like it's just not for me.
Yeah. No, I always like it's so interesting. Speaking of the commodification of this time of year, like I always feel so torn of like everyone in entrepreneur land is like, like you should be prepping for Black Friday for months. I'm like, that just feels, I don't know. I don't have good feelings about it. I think I'm going to put together like a neurodivergent gift guide. But yeah, it's a weird thing as a business owner, the commodification of this season of like, do you lean into that? Do you just like, no, no?
I'm one of those people though, like if it's like everyone tells me I'm supposed to be doing something, I'm not gonna
Hmm.
do it. That's just always
Yeah.
been who I am. I didn't watch Game of Thrones for years because everyone was like, "You have to watch this show. It's amazing." And I'm like, "No, this is stupid." And then all of a sudden, I've watched it 60 times on repeat.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's
Hmm.
just been my mentality around basically everything, despite
Hmm.
whether it impacts me negatively as a business owner or not.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that. I like that. So yeah, commodification, which I mean, that can be a stress of the holidays, right? That just the financial aspect for people. I think family, like if anyone has if anyone has a dysfunctional family, which most of us to some extent do, like the holidays can be hard. If
Yeah.
anyone's lost someone, like we talked about grief a couple months ago, holidays can be excruciating. The sensory aspect, the shoulds, like, yeah, what have we missed? There's a lot of
Or if you're
reasons. It's
like
hard.
struggling with sobriety or if you're
Mhm,
struggling with
mhm,
substance use in general, the
yeah,
holidays are typically a time where that's going to ramp up quite a bit.
mhm,
Um,
yeah,
whether it be for coping, no
mhm,
judgment there, like whether it be for coping, whether it be for navigating loneliness or feelings of
Mhm.
I don't feel connected to this or I
Yeah.
feel like I don't belong. Um, so you're going to see a lot of that as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Wondering about like, and also holidays tend to come with like, if you're working, right, for an employer, holiday parties and get
Mm,
togethers, gathering
mhm,
situations where you may have to really, figure out a way to either manage that energy and that boundary and that sensory overload and that social expectation for your job's sake, or you may decide like I can't participate in this. And does
mm.
that have ramifications for my career or for my coworkers and colleagues and my relationships?
Yeah, absolutely. And work, gosh, yeah, work social events can be really complex to begin with for autistic people because the context shift and the
Yeah.
rules shift, but it's not clear. It's like, okay, so at work, we don't talk about personal things, but then when we have a holiday party, we do, but like it's still limited. Like it's, I think in general, those work social events are really complicated to navigate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm,
Absolutely. And then you're talking about small talk hell once again.
mm,
Um,
mm,
Never looked forward to those. Always found reasons or excuses to try to get out of
mhm,
them. So I think it's important to also think about like, okay, we're talking about what the holidays can bring up. Some people may have good associations, some negative, etc. But boundary setting, ways to manage some of the stress and anxiety as you're going into a season where you're supposed to feel happy and joyous and connected.
That's fair. Yeah. Yeah. Because it makes you feel, if you're feeling disconnected, it makes it all the more apparent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I
Yeah.
think it always feels for me like, oh, what's wrong with you? Well, how come how come you don't look forward to 3 months of fucking Christmas music going on in
Hmm.
stores that you go to go shopping?
Hmm.
I'm just like looking forward to Reese's changing the trees and then eggs and like all the seasonal Reese's. I'm real excited about that. But boundary setting wise, I think it's important to have some strategies so that you can kind of try to set boundaries with family and friends and colleagues as you're going into a couple of months stretch where you really want to protect your energy. You
Hmm.
really want to
Hmm.
sensory soothe. You really maybe don't want to have certain demands placed upon you.
Hmm.
So I think
Hmm.
it's important to think about strategies and techniques where you can at least have some of that in place. I know it's not
Hmm.
always possible for you to say like I'm not going to participate in this, but to the best of our abilities to have some strategies, I think would
Hmm.
definitely be ideal.
Yeah. Absolutely. And some of it, like back to cross neurotype relationships, some of it might come back to strategies in like if someone's partnered with their partner, because I think those are sometimes the hardest conversations if like one partner really wants to travel to see their family, but
Yeah,
traveling is really hard for the other. Or just in general, one partner might want to be doing a lot of holiday events outside the home. Well, that's hard for the other partner. So I think starting conversations in that partnership, if someone's partnered, is probably really crucial, especially if like one's extroverted and one's introverted, or one likes to be out of the home more. Um, yeah.
absolutely. I think start those conversations. Obviously we're talking like this is going to release probably sometime in December, but going into 2024, start those conversations early next year too. Like be proactive in that communication because
Mhm,
for us, I've talked about my relationship on here before. My wife has a very large family. They all get together for the holidays. They love it. She looks forward to it. But we've kind of had this like agreement where for Thanksgiving week, we won't go anywhere. We won't go to her families. We won't go to all the gatherings. But like for Christmas, we'll go for the day so she can see our nieces and nephews unwrap
mhm,
presents. And like for me, that's a concession I'm totally willing to make. It also allows me to like conserve that energy a little bit more than
mhm.
if I had to
Yeah,
really prepare to be on the go all the time.
absolutely. So yeah, like you all have found a compromise that works for you too. Yeah. Yeah. I think compromise, the other word that comes to mind is differentiation. Like, I think there's this weird idea that couples always have to do things together. Like, one couple can, like, one. I get that it's not ideal not to maybe spend the holidays together, but like one person can travel without the other, one person can go to an event without the other. Yeah, there might be questions, but um, like we don't have to do everything together just if we're partnered. And I think sometimes we forget that.
I feel like you've mentioned this like on 10 different episodes now, that exact like sentiment of couples do not have to do everything together. So that could be a whole freaking series, I think, of autistic and or just cross neurotype partnerships and neurodivergent partnerships. But yeah, I agree 100%. And finding that compromise, finding that balance. And yeah, there might be some conversations to navigate, but I do think it's probably in the long run better off for everyone all around if
Hmm.
you come to that agreement for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I've mentioned this on the podcast before too, but like I like to overlay pacing systems, and a pacing system is just like any system that helps you think through how to pace your activity with like a value system. So um so for me and for like a lot of neurodivergent parents, um yeah, I'm pretty fine not seeing my family during the holidays, but I want my kids to have memories with their cousins. So like that's a high value for me. So I'd maybe this is confusing because I use like the light system for both. Like that's a green light value, like that's a high value, and like a red light activity for me. Like it takes a ton of energy, but it's like I intentionally make that choice. And similar for you to like go see your wife's family. So I think also thinking through both like energy expenditure, but also values, and then figuring like spending your red light energy expenditures on green light values. Like you don't want to be spending red light energy on like low value things. That's just not a good use of our energy expenditure.
Yeah,
Um, so then again, figuring out like what can we drop during the holiday season that's not a high value but perhaps a high energy cost.
agreed. 100%. It's a great way of looking at it. And I think prioritizing and it's kind of doing that cost benefit analysis, right? Of like,
Mhm,
this is worth it to me, but I know it's also going to drain me. So just having to put the tools in place to mentally prepare for that and then support your nervous system and your sensory system afterwards and however you need to. I think
mhm,
the one thing that I'm thinking about holiday related, I don't know why, maybe it's just my own dysfunction in family systems, but is like uncomfortable conversations at the dinner table. Um,
mm,
and I think for
mhm,
those who are like, whether you're new to your diagnosis and you're talking about it publicly, there might be some scrutiny, there might be questions, there
mhm,
might be like maybe even some ableism that comes up. And we just did an
mm,
RSD series, so hell, we
mhm.
certainly can create a
Yeah,
whole ton of RSD at these situations. So
yeah,
maybe just creating some like conversational cue cards for yourself too of like, some
totally.
notes or some
Yeah,
scripts or things like that that can be helpful for you as well to set those boundaries.
yeah. Yeah, I think having exit scripts kind of pre-thought out or boundary scripts is so helpful. Like, actually, I don't want to talk about that here. If you want to talk about that one-on-one, have it if that's true, if you're happy to talk one-on-one. Um, but having thought through, yeah, how to kind of get out of those sticky situations beforehand is can be really helpful.
Yeah,
Do you
absolutely.
have any like go-to like well-phrased sentences of that kind of shuts down a conversation?
I've always been good at like saying like, okay, if this conversation's becoming uncomfortable, how can we switch the conversation to something that everyone's interested in talking about? Or
Mm,
like, and that's usually like, oh, like let's talk about the football game that's on TV right now, or like let's talk about whatever else and bring the conversation away from the attention on you and back to
mhm,
something that feels more neutral or more common ground for everybody that everyone can participate in.
mm,
It also like
mhm,
takes the pressure off of feeling like the spotlight is just like shining on
mhm,
me directly and I have now to like to respond or communicate or participate.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hmm.
I also
Okay,
have
I had oh, go
sorry.
ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm kind of changing gears. So,
I just have the avoidance strategy of just not going. So like that's always
yeah,
my
yeah,
go-to ism too.
yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was thinking they're like, I don't really have that experience of avoiding awkward things because what I do is I shut down when I'm in large sound groups. So, like, And it's interesting, my dad, who, we've been talking a lot about, he's also a psychologist, so we've been talking a lot about my neurodivergence the last few years. He'll be like, "Yeah, I'll look over at the table," and it's like you're just not there. So I shut down, which, like, then I just am kind of listening to everyone else's conversation. And it's group conversations are really hard for me, which is sometimes evidenced in this podcast. Um, so I just get really quiet, shut down. What I didn't realize it, and it's interesting. My spouse used to like be like, "Are you okay?" Again, this was pre-diagnosis, and he'd worry about me. I was just like, "Okay, she's in her little shutdown mode." But what I didn't realize, I think this is perhaps helpful for people, was, that is a stress state and the body needs to release that. The body needs to complete the stress cycle. When I would go home back when I was drinking, speaking of like drinking holiday season, I would often be like, I need a drink, like after I got home. And now looking back, it's like, okay, my body was in this kind of frozen, immobilized stress state, looking for a way to get out of that stress cycle. That's turns out, spoiler, that's not a great way to actually complete the stress cycle. Um, but just to know, like, even if you're not feeling anxious and agitated, if you're feeling shut down, like when you're done with those events, your body still needs to release that, whether it's like going on a really grounding walk in the cool air or like taking a gentle bath. Like your body needs to do something with that. And I think that's just a helpful thing for people to be aware of during the holiday season.
Absolutely. 100%. I tend to do that too in group conversations around a dinner table or something when multiple people are talking at once, where I'm like kind of doing this internally and I can't
Uh-huh.
focus and I
Yeah.
can't really like participate. Then I start to shut down and then I become really quiet. So
Mhm.
yes, that stress state is definitely real. So pay attention to that for yourselves and just kind of monitor that. There may not be something you can do in the immediacy of like I can release this right now, but just like Megan said, the great strategies when you
Mhm.
are out of that environment, being able to get that stress out of the body because you certainly don't want that to build up and just cause
Mhm.
further,
Yeah.
complications or issues.
And taking breaks, like if someone's spending a long day somewhere, if, like, can you get outside? If it is outside less sensory overwhelming, but like the cool air, the like just getting fresh air, again, if air quality is fresh. Um, Getting kind of out of, because I think part of it is being in a like enclosed space with lots of bodies that I know that's part of what's hard for me. So taking breaks, sensory breaks throughout the day. So again, so that stress kind of has a chance to come down. So it's not just building, building, building all
Totally.
day.
I
Yeah.
was always the person that'd be like volunteering to go run errands, if like,
Yeah. Yeah.
hey, can anyone go pick this thing up? Yep, sure. I'll go
It,
do it. Like, let me get the hell out of here.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, putting yourself into situations like that where you can take a break, get
Mhm.
outside.
And I think that's a great reminder because, like, a lot of us want connection, right? And it goes back to, I don't know that we'll release it in this order, but last week we recorded on attachment and belonging, and we want it. A lot of us, it's just, well, I'll speak for me. Like, I want it. It's just hard for me.
Yeah,
So I think finding ways, same for me. It's like, okay, if I can do the dishes, if I can find a way to stay busy, if I can run an errand, like, are there ways to feel connected to whatever is happening, whether it's with the family or the friend group, but in a way that is more tolerable. So I love that you like become the errand
yeah,
person.
always.
Yeah.
I do that now, even in retreat settings when I have
Hmm.
my partner there. I'm like, yeah, I'll go get the food. Like, I'll go
Yeah.
throw everything out. I'll go do the thing so I can get into
Uh-huh.
movement. I can kind of like take a like a test on myself, like where am I at? Just kind of gauge it and reset a little bit to my best of my ability, and that's always been pretty useful. So just
Hmm.
trying to do more of that stuff. And like I remember when I was living in New York before I moved to North Carolina, like dating someone whose parents were divorced, my parents were divorced, having to go to 4 different places in one day. And like,
Oh my gosh.
put on the show of like, oh, I'm so
Wow.
happy to be here and like can't wait to spend this
Uh-huh.
couple of hours. And I just remember how horribly exhausting, like,
Mhm.
all of that was. So, yeah, just
Yeah.
trying to find ways for you all to ground, regulate, sensory soothe, take breaks, set boundaries, all the things that work for
And
you.
I would add connect because I think part of what can be painful about the season for us is sometimes like we're seeing other people connect or we're at least seeing on social media the illusion of people connecting and even in the like the movies, the holiday movies, like a lot of them are very connection focused. So finding ways that I think help us feel deeply connected to people in our lives during the season.
Totally.
Um, I think that could be in the kind of holiday self care bucket if we were putting together a little holiday self care toolkit.
Absolutely. Agree. 100%. I think connection's paramount, and just finding those ways to connect with one or two people that you can in whichever way that you can, super important.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
I will say, like, in the, theme of, like, receiving gifts and gift giving, always been a
Mhm.
struggle for me, but my wife's,
Yeah.
like, doing, like, special interests, like, gift giving for me, and it has changed the way I receive things so drastically
Mm-hmm.
from, like, opening something up and being like, "Oh, thank
Mm-hmm.
you. I don't know how to react to this," to actually, like, being pretty genuinely excited
Mm-hmm.
or content with, like, some of that stuff. So that's been a nice thing to have that shift too, because I myself, like, struggle when my reaction isn't what the other person wants it to be.
Oh gosh. Yeah, that could be a whole thing. Like, yeah, opening gifts in front of people. It's awkward because there's like this expectation and like a lot of us don't hide our faces very well. Like if we're disappointed. I remember early Christmas, I had like a response and I was a kid, but I had a response to something my aunt gave me. And I very much remember the like, we don't do that. She's like, okay. But now I hate opening gifts in front of people. I get so awkward. Um, yeah, I gift giving feels really inefficient to me, especially again in my partnership. Like we share the same funds,
Right.
so I'm like, why would we gamble giving something to spending money on something that we don't know if you'll like? So we actually just buy our own gifts, but then wrap them for each other, which I think is so much more efficient
Yeah, I like that strategy.
or logical. Not efficient, logical.
That is very logical, yeah. Yeah, we share a joint bank account, so, like, whatever I'm buying you is coming out of the same money, right? Like, yeah,
So don't you
it's
want to like it? Like, yeah. Why would we risk
and
spending money on something that you're not going to like?
yeah, and you don't wanna hurt the other person's feelings, especially if you care about them, so you're like, "Ah, fuck, I hate this gift, but I don't know how to react to this." Yeah, it's a whole thing. Again, it's just holidays are complicated. Weird timing
Mhm.
for sure.
Yeah.
And then, like, I don't even wanna get started on the idea of, like, "Okay, it's about to be the new year, so new year, new you, like,
Oh
let's
my
put these
gosh.
resolutions into place," like,
Yeah.
and I can only start them January 1, 2024. I can't start them anytime other than that, and if I
The
don't, then
magical day.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So talk about logic. Like
yeah.
I do. Okay. So actually yeah, I actually do kind of also enjoy the like, yeah, it's my ADHD, right? Like I love challenges. I love novelty. So I do kind of get excited about New Year resolutions, but I feel embarrassed about it because I know the issues with it. But I do actually kind of get excited about like a point to reflect on the last year and a point to like intention, like kind of set intentions of like, what do I want this next year to look like? What do I want the rhythms and the habits to be? Um, so again, talk about commodification. I don't love that all that happens around that, but I do like the invitation to pause and reflect.
I agree. I love the pausing and the reflection. I love timelines in general. Like, I like kind of looking
Hmm.
back and zooming out a bit. Um, because I don't feel a sense of, like, contentment or pride or satisfaction or presence a lot of times in my day to day. So to zoom out, it's like, this feels good. Like feels nice to be able to like
Mhm.
put things in linear order too. Um, but yeah, I don't love the like, okay, it's the new year and now I'm gonna change everything about me and I'm gonna do these new
Mhm.
things. And like that's why gym memberships last for like a week and then nobody ever goes back.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's just I don't know. It's one of those things. I sound really cynical today, and I just realized I just hate the holiday season, and that's just my reality. So
You're allowed to have that. I mean, I think that's actually one of the tips I give is like release any expectations about like how you should feel about the season, right? Whether it's you should like it or
yeah,
like, and I think perhaps one of the most starting helpful points is just releasing any expectations we have about how we should experience this season.
absolutely.
So you're modeling that. Well done.
And yeah, I'm just hearing myself out loud. I'm like, I hate that. Yeah, that really bothers me.
Well, maybe you're hearing it because I'm like usually with you with all the cynicism. And today I'm like countering. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah,
but this is my
but
experience.
right. I like
Wait,
that
you
though.
and I have different experiences on something? Weird.
It is good to highlight that, you know, not all profiles have to be exactly the same. So
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't know if I have anything else. I can keep talking about this.
Feel free. I'm also fine. Like, I think a short episode is fine. And feel free to keep talking.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I talked about everything I wanted to hit today. Just kind of like being aware of you not feeling well too. Um, I don't want to drag this out if we don't have to. So I think everything we talked about is good. Just for those of you listening, just find the little spots and the little moments that you can embrace or connect to. And I think that it takes a lot of the pressure off of like, this was supposed to feel this way or be experienced this way, or I was supposed to show up this way. And really try to take some of that intense, like, societal expectation off of you if you are in a part of the world right now that's gearing up to celebrate a lot of these holidays that are coming up.
Mhm. Mhm. That's,
Okay.
that's well said. Can't add anything helpful to that.
Well, this episode will come out before probably early December. So for those of you who are listening, we appreciate it and hope you can kind of just create whatever you need to create in the next couple of weeks too and take care of yourselves. So for all of you listening to Divergent Conversations, it's on all major platforms and YouTube. New episodes are out every single Friday. Like, download, subscribe, and share. And goodbye.